What's up, everybody? It's Clint from the Die Hard MMA Podcast coming to you for Pub Sports Radio with a very special fight breakdown. We're talking Tyron the Chosen One Woodley versus Jake Paul. It's a big weekend for fight fans, and after we get through the PFL, after we get through the LFA, after we cash in on UFC Vegas 35, we get to see Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley on Sunday, no less. It's going to be a good weekend. So I thought this one definitely warranted taking a closer look at these two and talking about that betting line a little bit more in depth than we normally would expect to. Let's start with the fighter we're far more familiar with, Tyron Woodley, the Chosen One. He's a guy that we've made a whole lot of money off of recently, fading him. The man is on a 4-fight losing skid. His last 4 fights have been a loss to Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns, Colby Covington, and Vicente Luque. Now, against Kamaru Usman, as you would expect, this was a grinding affair, a decision loss. Against Gilbert Burns, same thing. Gilbert hurt Tyron Woodley early, but could not get the finish. Had to resort to the grappling, wrestling, stifling the older Tyron Woodley to get out of there. Colby Covington, once again, wash, rinse, and repeat, took him down over and over. He did actually manage to get a TKO victory in the 5th round. However, Woodley's rib popped from the grappling. That was not a TKO. That was not something that Colby Covington had done. We cashed a very, very lucky round 5 sprinkle on that ticket. So very, very fortunate for us. However, we cannot count that against Tyron Woodley or credit that to Colby Covington because it was really a bit of a freak accident. Vicente Luque, on the other hand, Tyron Woodley finally showed up for that fight. Finally came out and did what he was talking about doing. Finally came out with some fire, some aggression, and actually looked to put his opponent away. They did have a decent amount of grappling. That didn't end well. Tyron Woodley was definitely slowing down. Tyron Woodley was definitely gassing, got tired, and then Vicente Luque was able to hurt him on the feet and take advantage of a submission once they hit the floor. Now, the thing we've got to remember with Tyron Woodley is he's an elite level fighter, but he is knocking on the door of 40 years old. He's getting up there. He's in incredible shape still, and he's able to go with these guys, but he's really on the defensive. But if you think about it, only Vicente Luque was the one to get him out of there in the 1st round. Gilbert Burns got close, but couldn't quite do it. Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and Kamaru Usman all had to rely on slowing this man down, tiring him out for 25 minutes to get the win in those fights. And we saw, I know it was a bit ago, but back when he fought Darren Till, I mean, he still has that explosiveness. And Jake Paul is just an unproven commodity at this point. Jake Paul is 3-0 as a professional boxer, and his opponents, yikes, his opponents were Ali Gibb, Nate Robinson, who's a YouTuber, and then Ben Askren, who showed up fat, out of shape, with a spare tire on the front, having not trained for the fight, literally just showed up for a paycheck, did Ben Askren. After getting one of the most vicious highlight reel knockouts we've ever seen, we can't really count much for durability in Ben Askren. And the thing I really want to lay into here is, I bet Jake Paul against Ben Askren. I absolutely did. It's one of my few regrets as a bettor over the last couple of years is I wish I had backed the jump truck up. It was such a setup fight. It was such an easy spot. Of course, Jake Paul was going to beat Ben Askren. Askren is a wrestler. He's a grappler. Even at the prime of his career, when he was undefeated, when the UFC was chomping at the bit to get him on the roster, Ben Askren did not have any type of offense when it came to striking. He did not have any knockout power. He didn't have anything besides taking his opponent down and ground and pounding them into oblivion. It just is not the way the man has ever fought, and it's not a skill he's ever possessed. So we are going from Jake Paul taking out Ben Askren 4 months ago. 4 months ago. Going from a man with 0 striking credentials to a UFC champion caliber striker with heavy hands, some of the biggest highlight reel knockouts on his record, and who since retiring from MMA has done nothing but strike. In fact, Tyron Woodley's gone to work with Floyd Mayweather, gotten some tips on his boxing, and it might just be me, but if you remember Tyron Woodley, anytime he weighed in for UFC fights, this guy relied on his physicality. He's a monster. He's always puffed to the max with his muscles. Absolutely jacked and swollen. He looks like he's trimmed down a little bit to me. Now, this may be the age. Maybe it's because he's 40 years old and he can't carry as much muscle, but it also looks like he's emphasizing the speed of boxing. You have to be more fluid. You have to be able to move for longer, throw a lot more punches. It's more volume. It's less heavy shots. Tyron Woodley looks like he has been working out and embracing that style of fighting, and it slimmed him down a little bit. The X factors in this spot. Tyron Woodley's age is a problem. It's a big boon to Jake Paul. Jake Paul is going to be younger by a wide margin. He's also much bigger than Tyron Woodley. He has stacked the deck in this spot looking for a win that he should be able to get. Jake Paul has a height and a reach advantage on Tyron Woodley. But when I went back, honestly, I talked to myself about being impressed with Jake Paul. I looked at him against Ben Askren, and I knew that was just going to be a spot where he was going to absolutely roll. He's a kid that's very popular. He's got a lot of money. He's paying for the best training in the world, and he legitimately could evolve as a boxer here. He could. He absolutely could. But some of the things that he did in that Ben Askren fight were very, very concerning. There was a spot where Ben Askren had the opportunity to throw a counter right hand, and Jake Paul ran right into it. It was a spot that he had no reason to fear Ben Askren. There's no power coming on the other hand from that shot. But the fact that he made that mistake, the fact that he left that gap, he left that hole, that's something that a fighter like Tyron Woodley can capitalize on. Tyron Woodley may not have ever been the slickest boxer. He may not have ever been the guy with the fanciest hands, but he knows how to counterpunch. He knows how to swing a bomb. He knows how to throw an overhand right. And I think there's a lot of opportunities that Jake Paul leaves open for those kinds of cracking shots. Now, if you watched anything this morning, we got the pre-fight press conference, the stare downs, the face-off, and then, of course, the melee afterward. There was a lot of drama this morning. Someone talking about Tyron Woodley's mama brings back shades of a UFC press conference that we had not so long ago. But Tyron Woodley took some serious offense to that, and there's a lot of tension leading into this fight right now. Tyron Woodley is absolutely dialed in. He looks mean. He looks violent. He looks hungry. And that's the kind of thing that we didn't see from him until the Vicente Luque fight. So based on his emotional patterns, the way he's been fighting recently, if he comes out anything in this fight like he did against Vicente Luque, we can't count Tyron Woodley out of this fight. Yes, he's the smaller fighter, but he absolutely is the more experienced fighter. He absolutely hits harder of the two. And Jake Paul is still a work in progress. He is still a little sloppy. He still has a tough time with some of the things that he's working on in this fight, in this game. I think there's holes of Jake Paul, and I think that Jake Paul leaves himself exposed sometimes. He was a little tentative, even when fighting Ben Askren. He has a hard time getting in there, closing the range, doing some of the things you're supposed to do, and I think that this fight is going to be a lot of that. I think there's going to be a lot of clinch situations. I think Tyron Woodley's going to come out hard. He's going to come out early, and he's really going to look to end this fight. But then when he slows down, when he starts to get tired, I think he knows how to shell up and survive. I think he knows how to be defensive. And Jake Paul is not a guy that is just going to style on Tyron Woodley because skill for skill, he's just not there yet. He's going to be. He's got the potential to be, but I just don't think he's there yet. I think Tyron Woodley will be able to cover up, keep himself safe, keep himself in this fight. And because of that, I think this thing probably goes over if Tyron Woodley doesn't kill him early. There is the chance that Tyron Woodley hurts, rocks, and drops Jake Paul very early in this fight. But I also think that Jake Paul probably is smart enough to know that. If Tyron Woodley comes out hard early, Jake Paul's going to cover up, he's going to defend, he's going to stay in this fight, and then he's going to try to turn the tables on Tyron Woodley once he tires out and slows down. However, I don't know that he's actually got the firepower to do what he's talking about doing. The shot he hit Ben Askren with was kind of a glancing shot. It was kind of a weak shot. Ben Askren fell over, got up, told the ref he was fine, and the ref waved it off anyway. That's not a shot that's going to hurt or drop Tyron Woodley. That's not a shot that Ben Askren is capable of taking because, again, he's not a striker. He's got some serious durability issues. And the referee waved it off for some unknown reason. But, I mean, we go back to Ben Askren being out of shape at that point. You know what I mean? He came in with no training whatsoever, flabbier than we've ever seen him for that fight. Tyron Woodley is coming in peak condition. He's been working very, very hard for this fight. So I think Tyron Woodley's going to be more than capable of taking a couple shots from Jake Paul. Long story short, what I'm getting as, I think Tyron Woodley is very live in this spot. I would not feel comfortable laying minus 200 on Jake Paul just because he's taller, just because he's longer, just because he's younger. I don't think that's enough to overcome the skill edge, and I don't think that is worth a minus 200 price tag. Hell, he was only minus 160 against Ben Askren. You're telling me he's a bigger favorite over Tyron Woodley than he was against Ben Askren? I know the line was wrong for Ben Askren, but I don't think he should be this big of a favorite. This is kind of a dog or pass situation for me, but at the end of the day, I think the age of Tyron Woodley is going to be a problem. I think the size of Tyron Woodley is going to be a problem. And I think Jake Paul being the young, hot commodity, we all know boxing is just as sketchy, if not sketchier, than MMA when it comes to the way they judge things and the way they do things at the end of the day. I think Jake Paul probably wins this fight, but I might be taking on a little bit of a flyer on Jake Paul by decision. That's currently 10-1. 9-1, 10-1. Jake Paul by decision. I don't think these guys are able to hurt each other or finish each other once we get past those first couple rounds. I think it's going to turn into a clinching war of attrition. And then when that happens, they're both going to be kind of hanging on for dear life and trying to outpoint each other with heavy, tired arms. So I'd be looking at the overs. I'd be looking at Jake Paul by decision. I don't think I want Tyron Woodley by decision because realistically, I do think Tyron Woodley needs a knockout to win the fight. And if it goes the full distance, I don't think the judges are going to look very kindly on Tyron Woodley. I don't think he's getting the nod, even if it looks like maybe he should win the fight. So that would be my spot. I don't know that I'm going to bet this thing very hard. Be careful. This is a freak show fight. Those never end well when you're betting large amounts, so please, bankroll management, be very, very careful. But I might be taking a taste of Jake Paul by decision, or you can get those props of Tyron Woodley by knockout or Tyron Woodley in the first or second round at 5-1, something like that. Because if Tyron's going to win this thing, it's got to be early. That's my read on Paul versus Woodley. Smash that like button for me. Leave a comment down below. Let me know which side you are picking, MMA versus boxing. Good luck on your bet. Let's roll.